Hello, hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome back to another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. It's Lee Elias with Christie Burns and Mike Benelli. I'm not going to lie to you two. I love doing this open. It's exciting every time I get to do it, and I love the smiles on your faces. For those of you listening, we obviously create videos of all of these too, which you can find across the social sphere. But this is going to be a great episode today because we've got an in-demand topic. Private lessons. It's on the minds of lots of parents when I walk around the rinks at all ages asked about, should I do it? Should I not do it? So today's title is it time for private lessons? What skills coaches can and can't do? We're going to have a discussion for you. We're going to break it down. Is it worth it? When should you do it? Why should you do it? What to look for if you are going to do it. But it's a pretty important topic, guys, because more and more people looking for private lessons, looking for that extra ice. Why don't we start out by discussing just the benefits of private hockey lessons? Because there are several, right? But you got to know what you're getting into. Christy, you want to lead us off on this one?
Yeah, well, there are benefits because you both are coaches and coaches are busy. You don't have time to fix everybody's issues. And every kid has issues.
Right.
Some, they might be weaker skaters. Some need work on their shot. Some need work on how they carry themselves, their posture, their edges. There's so many different little things that you see in kids that need fixing, improving, that you don't have time for. So that's when private lessons can help. But I caution that. I think 11 years old and under, they can be a waste of time because for a lot of reasons, kids are still developing. You don't even know if your kid wants to keep playing hockey year to year until they're 11 or 12. So it can be a waste of money. What's not a waste of money, maybe getting them a few extra lessons on skating. That's never a waste. You can always improve your skating. There's so many areas that you can improve. Your footwork, your edges, your posture, keeping your head up as you're skating. Those are all little things that you can work on as a kid, 11 and under. But I think when you get into the more specifics about the shooting and, the game situations, I think it's a waste when you're under 11 years old. What do you guys think?
I'm really glad you clarified that because I know a lot of under 11-year-old families that do private lessons. And Christy, I believe you're 100% correct. It's got to be focused on skating at that young age. It is the most fundamental skill in the game. And look, if your 10-year-old has this great shot but can't skate to the net,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's the skill you need to work on the most.
Right.
And to be fair, most of the people I see doing this, that is what they're focused on. They're going to a skating coach to work on their stride. But still, you are developing. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I also think you got to keep your expectations realistic that, a good skating coach is going to help you get better, but it's not going to jump you from, baseline to the best player in the world overnight. It takes a long time to cook a hockey player. That's
right.
What I keep saying.
Be realistic about it. You're right. And a lot of this stuff, the kids in the summertime can work on right in their driveway with a stick, puck, rollerblades, a net in the driveway. All those things they can work on in their own time without the pressure of having them formally get dressed, go to the rink, and now you're getting back into the year-round season kind of a situation where they can learn a lot of their skills, pick them up just practicing right in the driveway or just at a free skate.
Yeah, well, let's turn it to Mike here because something Mike always says, and Mike, you said this so eloquently in an episode a long time ago about if you're going to go to a private instructor, know why you're going. Like, don't just show up and say, make me good. I want to work on my skating. If you're younger, if you're older, there's lots of little nuances you can work on. And also from Christy's point, make sure it's not something your kid can just do in the driveway at the house, right?
Right.
If you're going to go to a skill instructor, make sure they have a specialization or at least they're good at it to a point they can explain it. Right, Mike? So let's go to you. Like that, to me, the benefit of a private hockey instructor is, Mike, to your point, knowing why you need to be there in the first place.
Yeah. So you want to relate it. It's very relatable to school, right? So you could be in a big classroom and you can be in an academic place where, maybe your son or daughter's struggling in that particular class or in that particular subject. And that's kind of where the private lesson comes in. It comes in as, maybe my skating's behind, maybe my shooting's behind, maybe I'm not turning and maybe I'm afraid of getting body checked or I'm afraid of, physical confrontations along the boards. Like, this is where I think private lessons really come into play. And it's a private tutor. It's somebody that can look at the deficiencies or, I don't want to say players are behind. To Christie's point, you're not really behind under 11 years old. You're not behind, but you can get into a really good situation where you can fine tune certain things. And a lot of it on the private side too, when I think about private lessons, you just don't think about on ice. You got to think about, all the different things that happen, whether it's physical fitness, whether it's private lessons on balance and agility and coordination, whether it's a private lesson on watching game video or learning how to journal or whatever it is. Like, there's some instances where kids and parents don't feel comfortable in a big group, and they're much more beneficial being in a very small, tight-knit, one-on-one setting.
Right. It brings up a good point. Let's take a look now more at the coaches, right? Like, what should you be looking for in a great coach, which we're kind of alluding to. Now, we've established that you should have a reason to go, right? It's not fair to the coach just to say, hey, make my kid better. Well, there's a lot of different aspects to that: skating, shooting, passing, game sense, agility. I mean, there's so many things. So I think what you want to look for, just to start with a great private coach, is there someone that can specialize in whatever you identify that needs to be worked on. If it's a skating coach, perfect, right? If it's a skills coach, perfect. But what you should be looking for in a great private coach is some form of specialization that they know what they're talking about, and you're going to get your money's worth. Okay. Now there is a scale on that, right? Because I don't think there's anything wrong to going to a college kid and, look, college players typically charge a little bit less because they're in college, right? Versus someone who's charging $100+ an hour, who it's their job to do this. So realistic expectations, what can you afford, knowing what you want to do, and then does that coach have a clue, right? I think that's an important aspect of finding a great coach.
And when it comes to posture, strides, and edges, don't be afraid to go to a figure skating coach.
100%. 100%, Chrissy. I agree with you. I mean, that kind of harkens to the play multiple sports type thought process. I mean, figure skaters are typically much better on their edges than hockey players are, right? They can teach you something. Yeah.
Yeah. I did that with my kids early on, and they really helped them with the edges. And then, to prove my point, the coach would often use Joey to show an example when they had to work on, edges and all that. Hey, Joey, show the kids how to do this. And he was really good at it because he had a couple lessons with a figure skating coach, and his edges were just superb, just better than everybody else's. So, and I credit that to the figure skating coach he had. It was really good. His posture too, and looking up. So many kids have their heads down, don't they? When they skate, that's something they can learn early on. Break that habit when they're 11 and under. That's something you can work on with your kids.
Right.
Yeah, I tend to use the same rule for private lessons and skate sharpening. So if you go into a skate sharpener and you say, hey, can you sharpen my skates? And they say yes, and they take your skates, run and get them, go get them, and run away. Yeah. Same thing with private lesson. If you're going to say, hey, I want my son to have a private lesson, great, I can do it. It's at 7 a.m. on Wednesday morning, and I charge $85. Great. Run away. If there's no question about what position does my kid play,
right?
What does he need to work on? Have you ever seen the player skate before? Have you ever done an evaluation? Have you done an update on who, just looking at the player and what and how they play and who they play for and what the expectations, all that goes. You're paying a lot of money. It's a lot of money and time and the effort of getting there, right? And doing these things outside of your normal schedule. So I would just follow that rule that, if you're going to go find a good coach, it's not so much it's not so much the background of the coach. It's the questions the coach asks before they do the lesson.
That's a great point. And also, let's say at the end of the season, your coach comes up to you and your kid and says, hey, he needs to work on, or she needs to work on their skating. And they leave it like that. Don't leave it like that. Ask them, well, what about it? What is it about the skating? Is she not getting enough speed? Is it her starts? Is it her stops? Is it, how she skates toward the net? What is it specifically that she needs to work on. Just don't leave it as, oh, she should work on her skating,
Well,
or
and
she
building on
needs
that,
to work on her shot. Well, what is it about the shot?
right?
Tell me specifically. And then you can take that and go to the private coach and say, specifically,
Right.
we need to work on stops or her starts. They're not explosive. Coach wants to see explosive starts. And you can hone in on that and work on that specifically. So you're not wasting your money.
I wrote down here too that, and this is true of all coaches, but it's super true for, skills coaches or private lesson coaches, is your teacher, right? Like, we don't use that word enough when we talk about coaching. Coaching is teaching. Coaching is teaching, right? So when you think about teaching or you think about school, Christy, what do most teachers assign after the lesson?
Right? Some homework.
Homework, right?
Yeah.
So that's
That's what
another
you
value
work
to
on.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if a private coach is not giving you something to do at home, and they're just like, yeah, come back again, come back again, come back again. And I'm not saying you shouldn't go back again, all right? But if it's just like a transactional relationship, that's something to think about. The best private coaches I ever had, I would leave with assignments.
Sure.
The next time you come back here, this needs to be done, and I'm not going to coach you if you don't do it. Wow, that was a lot of value. All right. And it actually scared me a little bit because I wanted to keep coming back. All right. We'll get into motivations in a minute. So yeah, look, you're looking for a teacher. Mike brought up some great red flags there of, there's got to be some purpose behind it. Let's just say it that way. If there's no purpose behind it, they're just taking your money. And I do want to say this, like, because some parents say, well, my kid wants to train, they want to do it. Go to a stick and puck. It's $10-15 if they have stick and puck near you. And if they don't, without going too deep into it, there's plenty of off-ice training aids that can help you practice outside your house.
That's true.
Pay close attention to this podcast if you know what I'm talking about. Okay. I want to keep moving on here because, Christy, you alluded to this too. There is a communication, or there should be a communication between your regular season team and a private coach. And I actually don't think this happens enough. Okay. So when we're talking about what skills coaches can and can't do, again, Mike, to your point too, you want to have some form of communication between your head coach and your skills coach. All right. Even if it's as vague, Christy, as you said, of, hey, my coach wants me to work on this. That is a form of communication. Okay. In the best case scenario, your skills coach is talking to your head coach and you're working together to help this kid get where they need to be. But Mike, I want to throw that to you, right? I think we need to talk about for a minute, what can't private coaches teach their kids that they can learn in a team setting? Right. And also, how do you make it so they don't interfere? Because if you're not careful, gang, a private coach can really actually be a detriment to your kid if it's not what the head coach wants. Right. So quick example of that. Right. Kid comes in. I'm a center. I want to be the best center. I want to do all this stuff. You go back to the team. The kid's playing wing. The kid's playing a totally different position than what they want to be better at. That's not going to work out. All right. Keeping in mind, too, we always talk about positionless hockey, but you know what I'm saying. Mike, I'd love your thoughts on that. What can't private coaches do, and what should they be doing to not interfere with the team?
Yeah, well, I think that's a key component, right? Is if your private coach has no communication with the head coach and the person that's working with you all the time, then how beneficial can they be on certain little nuances of the game that the coach like I'll give you an example. I ran into a kid that he was getting lambasted by the coach because he couldn't chip the puck off the glass. Like, he couldn't get the right positioning to angle the puck and chip it out. Now, most people would be like, well, why would you ever teach that? Like, we should never teach glassing out and try to get rid of the puck and, try to move the puck away from you without skill. But on this particular team, the coach needed that and wanted that. Right. So then giving the kid the confidence that they could be in those situations to flip pucks out and have a better angle on their stick and have a better angle on their arms. Like, that's a big teaching piece. So knowing what the coach wants compared to what the player needs is a big component of why you might go see a private coach.
Yeah. And I want to say this too, that, I like to keep this in perspective as a coach, right? I want to help every kid I coach. I mean, I really, really do. But the reality is, at a practice, I probably can give you 30 seconds of real private instruction because I gotta coach the whole team, right? So if that kid is not able to receive that information in 30 seconds, which is really not crazy when you think about it, there's a lot going on at a practice. That's the time I have. And there was a time I did do skills coaching too, when I can give you really a good 45 minutes to an hour and really focus on something. That's special. Okay. Especially if you need to learn that skill. And Mike, again, you're talking about, again, the little nuances of a skill, right? I think when you look at skills coaching, let's use your glass and out example, right? There's so many little things there that actually apply to other areas of the sport: puck protection, awareness, how to lift it correctly, the right speed, the touch. Those can be applied other places. One of the things I always like to tell growing players is, that everybody knows that talk about you need your 10,000 hours. You get 10,000 hours in, you'll kind of get to a really good place. What was cool is I remember when I kind of reached that time point, right? And what started to happen was multiple skill sets started to work together. So the skills I had built up now were essentially talking with each other and allowed me to learn things very, very quickly. So glassing out, like I said it, the touch, the understanding turned into other things like passing and saucer passing and understanding body protection, turning away. All of those things started to work together, right? So those little nuances are great, but you have to know what the team wants. And then your ability to teach that in a multifaceted way is super duper important, right?
Yeah, very, very much so. And also parents have to have realistic expectations. I can remember an example of this. A hockey mom spent so much money over the summer because she wanted her kid to have a great shot. Well, he did, had a great shot. But the problem was he didn't know how to make opportunities for himself. He didn't have the game awareness. So even though they spent all that money to get the best shot on the team, didn't make him a better hockey player, because there's more to hockey players than just having those specific skill sets. You got to put it all together. So
Christie,
just be
such a great
realistic
point.
when you're investing in all this coaching and private lessons.
No, it's such a great point. And again, I'll give one quick example and then we'll kind of move on here. But you're right. I think everyone's focused on skating, shooting, passing, and maybe the physical side of the game. Right. And don't get me wrong. They're all very important. Okay. They're all very, very important. But most of them you can work on your own. Right.
Sure.
You want to get better at skating. You should have someone teach you how to skate and skate. Okay. But little things like we're talking about offense and systems and teams, understanding the responsibility of F1 in the zone and how to angle a player and be on top of that player and move that puck where you want it to go. I'm telling you, as a high level coach, that is an insanely important skill that my F1 can do that. All right. And I'm often shocked at how many people do not understand how to do that. All right. Or defensively, net front presence in our zone, understanding how to box people out and get possession of the puck. That's not a sexy skill.
Right.
But boy, is it a valuable skill. If I was going to speak to my defenseman about getting a private lesson, it would be, let's talk about how no one ever gets to the front of our goalie, right? Not just having your big slap shot. So just something to think about when you're talking, right? Private coaches are not necessarily there for your hockey IQ. They're there to give you the skills so you can apply it within your hockey IQ.
Yeah.
Right. This is a quick one.
Go ahead, Mike. I think you do have to understand too, if you're now, if we're speaking to the folks that are doing the private lessons and, or you aspire to want to give privates, I mean, that's a huge piece of the puzzle of teaching the why, of saying, exactly. Okay, listen, I know you can stick handle through this cone and under this deviator and get to a place where, what's your end game? Like, where are you trying to get to at the end? And I think, if you're watching your son or daughter in a private lesson and all they do is end every single drill with a shot, that's just not the game. The game, they get 3 shots a game. Maybe end most of the drills with a pass or a dump or a chip or a redirect, somewhere where now you can build hockey IQ into the player. The biggest thing we'll hear from skills or coaches evaluating talent will be the player is a great skilled player. They just don't know where to go in the game.
Exactly.
Right. And I'll say this too.
It's so important. I heard that over and over again, especially when Sophia was getting recruited. You would hear coaches say that, this player has great skill set, but you put them in the game and they freeze. They don't know how to think. They don't know where to go. They don't know how to be part of the team. So you can have all these great skills, but if you don't know how to play the game and work with your teammates, it's not really going to benefit you.
Well, again, great example. How many times do we see a breakout drill and trying to break out of the zone, but then the end of the drill is come back in the zone and take a shot, when it's like, well, the goal's to get the puck out of the zone,
Right.
retrieve the puck and get, so the drill should actually end with you exiting the zone. And
Right.
that's the goal.
Yeah.
Right. So great points there. Okay. Yeah. Another thing I want to talk about too is just, let's call it interference, right? Doing private lessons in the off season is one thing. And I think that that's for the players specifically. You know, once you had maybe your exit interview with your coach, like, these are the things my coach wants me to work on, a little more freedom here with your skills coach. In the season, I see kids do the same thing. They still get coaches. It's a lot of hockey.
That's
So
too much.
it's too much in my opinion
Yeah.
too, Christie. Yeah. And unless you're a really high level player that has a skills coach on the team,
Yeah.
which is a totally different environment. You're
Right.
not, you know,
That's totally different.
Right,
Having a
right.
skills coach on the team is very different
Right.
than hiring one privately and taking them to another rink, another time, adding more to their plate on top of school, on top of what other extracurricular activities they have. That's way too much for a kid during the season.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you on that. And, you know, sometimes parents say to me, well, they're asking for it. They want more ice time. They want more ice time.
Yeah, my kid would love to have an ice cream sundae every night for dinner. Okay. Does that
Right.
mean it's good for them? No.
Right.
Come on, you're the parent. Be a parent.
I'm with you on
it's
this.
good for the kid.
I think it's a you got to take it by kid basis. I
Right.
think there's a difference between doing it weekly, wanting to do it weekly, and maybe once in a while. All right. Like, maybe if you're really struggling with something and you really think a coach can help you, it's a nice gift, actually. It's a nice present. Right. Yeah, we're going to get you a private lesson. Sorry. So I just think that every family's got to gauge that. Just because your kid wants something doesn't mean you have to give it to them. You're already
Right.
spending a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If they're getting the ice time, my question would actually be during the season, well, why are you not practicing this at your practice?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
I
That's,
think Mike agrees with us,
he's not,
even though he's being silent on it.
No, I
He's
just
smiling.
think it's common sense. I mean, listen. I'm all for. I do a lot of private lessons and I do a lot of one-on-ones, and I see a lot of the same kids. Not with me, because I kind of regulate that a little bit on my own.
Mhm.
right.
But I see the same kids on the ice every single morning, and guess what? You know, a lot of them look happy. They look like they're enjoying it. I mean, they hopefully they don't have all D's, you know, in school, but like, you know, but I mean, I don't know how they're finding the other time to do the other things. But that's, hey, listen, if you're a family that can do it, and your kid's not, you know, complaining about getting up and going, then you know, do what you want to do. I just think it's over time, over the course of a player's career, those hours add up. And it's if your ultimate goal is at the end game is to have your kid play pro hockey, which is fine. You know, if that's what you want. You want your son or daughter to play pro, then the way to get there is not what you're doing. Because by the time they are able to get there, all these other things are going to have a lot of impact on them. Injury, overuse, you know, burnout, all that kind of stuff. And you can't project that in a 9 and 10-year-old. But you can defend against it by having a nice, healthy, you know, setup for one-on-ones and team instruction.
Right. I'm so glad you mentioned that. Injury, burnout, kids just not loving the game anymore. You put all that at risk when you load them up like that, parents. So pay attention to that.
Yeah.
We
And
know
Christie,
from experience. We've seen it.
Yeah, and you made a good point, you know, as far as the off-ice stuff, and Lee too, right? That you could take these off-ice tools and get the reps in without the wear and tear on your body, because then your kid is going to say, oh, I feel tired here. If you're with a private coach, most of the time, you're never going to tell that guy, you know, you've had. Here's my example, right, from my own personal experience. So my son was a catcher in Little League Baseball, and in Little League Baseball, there's a rule that pitchers can only pitch so many innings and so many pitches. But so Michael, when he was growing up, was the only kid that wanted to play catcher, or the only kid that was a catcher. So I would have these arguments with the coaching staff that, well, he can't be in a full game. He's throwing as many balls back as the pitcher. 3 pitchers pitched. He's the only catcher. So all of the reps that he's getting are inefficient later on and are going to open him up to injury and overuse, where you're only thinking about the pitcher. What about the kid that's throwing the ball every single time, you know, unless it's hit out of the ballpark? So I think it's the same thing with a parent and a private lesson. Like, be aware that those reps add up. Goalies are we know this with goalies, right? We already know that with goaltenders,
Yeah.
that those could be really negative reps, even though you
Yeah.
think you're doing a positive thing.
Again, my
Right.
kid will not play in the spring. We don't at
Good.
this age. We don't let him play in the spring. And you know what? I say it every year on the show. There's no complaint to start, but what always ends up happening, which is a good thing, and it's around. We're recording this in early June. It's, hey, when can I get on the ice again? I want to get on the ice again. Music to my ears. Again, he's 11. This will change as he gets older. He'll want to do more, most likely, but I'm not forcing it. It brings me to this kind of next and like the final part of this episode, which is a two-part, right? How do you know if your kid's ready for private lessons? And then what age? I think this is what's important. We're all kind of alluding to it, right? First off, let's just say this. Your kid has to want to be at these things. You have to want to be there. Do not bring your kid to a private lesson if they're not begging for it. All right. And parents, I hear them, hey, maybe we should do a private lesson and get your skating going. And this is my opinion. You don't have to agree with me on this. That's not the way to approach it. It's, hey, buddy, how would you feel about opportunities to help work on your skating? That's the question you might want to ask. The kid goes, oh, I'd love that. Then now you can open up a conversation. But if you say there's this private lesson you can go to that's going to make your skating better, well, you're telling the kid, I want you to work on your skating. Right. All right. That's how they're going to internalize it. The second thing is this. And again, my opinion, I can't speak for every family out there. And if you disagree with this, that's fine. Let us know. Private lessons should be a reward, especially at the younger ages. Okay. What I mean by that is this. My dad and mom did not take me to private lessons till they saw me shooting 1,000 shots on my own volition in the garage every day. They saw me putting time in on my own, and they recognized, oh, wow, he really wants to work on his game. That's when that became an availability. And they told me, and looking back at this now as an adult and a dad, they said to me, we did that because you showed us you wanted to do that. You wanted the extra work. We were more than happy to reward you with that because it costs a lot of money. All right. Keeping in mind too, there was no YouTube back then. There's no internet, not to the way it is today. I couldn't just go search what to train outside. Like I was making it up. Right. So if you see that drive in your kid at any age, I'm actually not going to put an age limit on this, and they want extra work and you find a great coach, to me, yeah, there's no right or wrong age to start. Okay. I don't want to put an age limit on. I think the type of training changes depending on the age. But if your kid has the drive and they want it, reward them with it. And really, like, hey, I see you training outside. There's a great coach nearby. Would you like to see that? Like, would you like a little more stuff there? That's my opinion. Okay. So again, I don't think that there should be too much of an age limit. I mean, I see crazy people out there with 6-year-olds doing 4 sessions a week. That's crazy. Yeah. That is crazy to me. All right. But once in a while, just to work on your stride. Sure. Again, it's the most fundamental. You would totally get your kid a tutor if they couldn't read. All right. At a certain age. So I just don't have a problem with that. And then again, that dives into how do you know they're ready? Well, they're outside practicing. It's all they're doing. Right. Like to a point, you got to moderate. But I'd love your thoughts on this too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I agree with you. 11 and under, we were into the private coach thing, but that was only to help them with the mechanics of skating. That's never going to hurt you. That was definitely worth the investment.
Right.
As they got older, we did get some private coaches. Sophia needed help with just her speed and her starts. The college coach wanting to see more explosive starts before she went to college. We hired a speed coach. And the biggest benefit I saw with both of my kids when they had the private lessons was confidence. Right. Their confidence level got boosted. And that was worth every single penny that we spent. They were just out there. They felt more confident. And that was a game changer.
Yeah, we're very blessed here in this area from a goaltending standpoint that, we've had the guest on, Matt Tendler from the goalie doctor, but there's so much availability for goalie private lessons or small group lessons. And, we do that right before the season. We go to a goalie camp because you said it, Christie, the confidence that he has out of that camp is just a great lead into the season.
Sure. Right.
And it's funny because when I see him get on the ice sporadically in the summer in net, you can tell he hasn't played in a little bit. He has fun, but even he goes, I haven't played in a minute. So like that's another thing, that prep of here's the goal I want you to have. Here's the confidence we're building. Get on the ice. I love that. Mike, I'd love your thoughts on this too. Again, we're kind of discussing how do you know your kid's ready? What age should they start? Right. I think we're tapping on that right now.
Yeah, and I think a good way to sometimes wean into it, and even if you're in a, especially with the younger kids, but the older kids, I think it's crucial. But you got to really look at more like the semi-private. Like I would really rather work with like 2 or 3 kids.
Yeah, I
in
agree
a
with you.
setting that and make it where if they're around the same skill ability and the same age and like have the same ability to kind of focus and be attentive
small group.
for the those small groups. And I don't mean 6 or 7, I mean 2 or 3. Like it's really, and the kids can compete against each other. They're facing passes from themselves. Like, the old saying that, if you want to, a great player will never get a bad pass, right? They'll always learn how to get, so I think us as private coaches, a lot of times you want to give that perfect pass every single time to the player. But the real key is giving them really bad passes and sometimes the best person to give a bad pass is just another bad player. Right. But I think if you so I think it's just just putting kids in age groups where they can compete a little bit. It adds a little bit of competition. It does add a little bit of like ego. It adds a little bit like, hey, I'm better than this kid and I'm doing better than that kid, and that's a good thing. What I definitely don't like though is the parents that do the privates and they don't tell anybody about it. It's like this top secret. They found.
We can't let them know. We can't let them know about this.
And they're like, and then all of a sudden you walk in the rink and there's 6 other kids from your team. They're like, what are you doing here? I thought you.
How did they know? How did they know about this person? Because that person's trying to make money.
Yeah. You really want to make. If you want to make.
Don't be one of those. Right? Don't be one of those parents. If you have a good skills coach who's really helping your kid, share it. That's the word. Yeah.
Well, especially if it's a team atmosphere. If it's in a team kind of setting, and you can have 2 or 3 kids, and plus it saves you a hell of a lot of money. And I think just the ability to have that little competition is great.
Yeah.
Well, when you look at the best players in the world, Sidney Crosby, known for training with Nathan McKinnon every summer. Yeah. Like they don't do it alone most of the time. And then they'll switch up trainers every 2 to 3 years. All right. Yeah. Final notes before we close this out. I read a great book by Tim Grover, who was the trainer for Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. He has 2 books out called Relentless and Winning. And one of my favorite parts was he never gave them a good pass at practice ever. He never gave them a good pass because to be the best players in the world, you don't get good passes all the time. So they just got over it and they learned. The other thing I wrote on here, one of the things I encourage parents to do with their kids, all of your kids are watching YouTube, all of them. Okay. Yeah. Lay this line on them. Did you know you could search YouTube for skills? Did you know you could search how to be better at this? Just plant the seed in their mind that they can search for things, right? Now, make sure you know what they're watching. Not everything out there is really great advice. All right. But one of the things is if your kid can learn the skill of, I can learn by watching, I can search, I can find things. That's a pretty valuable skill other than show me Minecraft world, people eating each other, whatever they do. Okay. Right. Teach them the skill to search. All right. The last thing I'm going to say before I close this out. I forgot who said this quote. When it comes to hockey, you have your toolbox. And the goal is to get as many tools in that toolbox as you possibly can. A great private lesson skills coach or small group coach is going to give you tools for that toolbox that you can't necessarily get at your team practice. The more tools you have, the more things you can do. If you only have if you only have the hammer of skating and the wrench of passing and this whatever other tool you want to pick for shooting, good tools, but you can't fix everything with just 3 tools. You need a lot of little tiny tools to find the way to get through. Fill your toolbox up and find a coach that's going to give you tools. That is the most valuable thing you can get out of private lessons. All right. That's going to do it for this episode. We hope you gave you some really good takeaways, things to think about. If you're looking for a private lesson, at the end of the day, if your kid loves the game, you'll find a path. You'll find your path. Nobody's on the same path. All right. And above all, just enjoy it and love it. And remember, if you're financially not able to afford it, there are so many avenues out there that you do not need to do this to build your skills. I would love to see more kids back on the street playing roller hockey, playing street hockey, just playing hockey. Don't have to be in the rink all the time. That's going to do it for this episode. Great discussion, guys. Christie Casciano Burns, Mike Benelli. I'm Lee Elias. Remember, if you have a question, comment, thought, agree, disagree, email us, team@ourkidsplayhockey.com, or in this episode description, there's a little link. You tap that, you text us, it comes to us. Remember to leave your name if you want us to talk about it, or an email if you want us to contact you. But no matter what you do, enjoy your hockey, enjoy your day. We'll see you in the next episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. Take care, everybody. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you found value wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. Also, make sure to check out our children's book, When Hockey Stops, at whenhockeystops.com. It's a book that helps children deal with adversity in the game and in life. We're very proud of it. But thanks so much for listening to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you on the next episode.